Arizona State professor says parents should have no power over the gender choices of their little children. Quick, someone reported to the ASU bias response team for using the word parent, which meanly implies biologically male and female coupling. Woke is woke after all. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and get on that bias response team. Welcome, everyone, and hello. This is the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E. Just imagine when I was a little boy, the one thing I could never imagine in all my life, I would sit there and press my nose to the glass. I want my own access code. I want my own. I have it. What a career milestone this is. That's Dr. Duke, D-R-D-U-K-E. Support us by supporting the good people at MyPillow. Please get some good stuff for you, get some good stuff for us. Everybody wins. All right, today we start in Arizona, where a professor argues that parents should be stripped of all power to intervene in their own children's decisions to get their gender changed at any age. At any age. Mom and dad should have no say in this. Professor, ASU. Are you surprised? Not really.
Not in the least. Well, this is Moira Priest, a philosophy professor for Arizona State University, and she's arguing that parents should lose veto power, as she calls it, the veto power. They should lose it because parents are not supposed to be parents anymore. Now, what happened was this is a response in the Journal of Medical Ethics to another paper that was written by Melbourne Law School researcher Lauren Notini. In Lauren's paper, it argued that ongoing puberty suppression is consistent with the proper goals of medicine to promote well-being and therefore could ethically be offered to non-binary adults in principle. And Priest said, I agree with that. But she claimed that medical opinion should not override LGBT testimony when it comes to making decisions around the gender transition process. It says, if the medical community is to take LGBT testimony seriously, as they should, she wrote, as they should, then it is no longer the job of physicians to do their own weighing of the costs and benefits of transition-related care.
So this article goes even further than arguing that parents should have their rights removed. Doctors, too, should have no right.
Yeah, she starts with the doctors, and then she gets to the parents.
So, in other words, she's a little fascist. The government alone, along with the kids themselves, confused kids, they make the decision, right? Yeah. That, my friends, is called fascism. And it's interesting that priests are usually banned from fascist countries. So we only can hope, Miss Priest, that you get a dose of your own medicine. Well, excuse me, doctors can't tell you what dosage you're allowed to take anymore.
There you go. She also wrote that assuming the patient is informed and competent...
Both completely undefinable
yes.
and left at the absolute whim of liberal progressives, right?
Yes.
Informed
and competent
the child.
Then only the patient can make this assessment because only the patient has access to the true weight of transition-related benefits.
Children
no doctors then.
Children know the full weight of nothing. That's why they're children.
They know
understand the full weight of nothing.
Of their siblings who sit on top of them.
Not even that.
They do.
And so, I mean, do you see she wants to have it both ways? She wants to cut out science with the doctors and parental control with the moms and dads.
Let's get to that part.
And make this just about tiny wee kids and the power of government to undo both science and parental rights. Again, is there a better definition of fascism that we could show right here? Show our little blonde fascist again. There she is. There's Moira Priest, right? Fascists. You think fascists are just a bunch of middle-aged men in black shirts with bad mustaches? Fascism comes in, she borrowed that article from an Australian, right? Fascism comes in with a good day, mate. Fascism comes from a little Arizona sun bunny, too. It seems like fascism is everywhere these days.
Well, Priest argued, if we're talking now about the parents' version here, taking LGBT patient testimony seriously also means that parents should lose veto power over most transition-related pediatric care. Just, okay, you got it? Okay. So Notini's article had stated a hypothetical patient, in this case an 18-year-old female named Phoenix, who identifies as gender non-binary. That's the example they use. That Phoenix should still be approved for hormone treatment despite the risk of lowering her bone density. In particular, Phoenix would have a very low absolute risk of fracture. And Priest's response to what that is considered a second hypothetical non-binary patient, because Priest has to one-up apparently this Australian researcher by bringing in a hypothetical non-binary patient named Chicago, who fully understands that a hypothetical ongoing puberty suppression treatment has a 90% risk of osteoporosis, a disease which, according to the Mayo Clinic, causes bones to become so brittle that a fall or even a mild stress, such as bending over or coughing, could cause a fracture. So she's going to say that even though there's a 90% risk with osteoporosis, they should be allowed.
Yep.
I mean,
we looked at a story just
naturally the non-binary.
Yeah, we looked at a story just last week where a mom was bragging. She was an Australian mom, speaking of the coincident. Another Aussie, right, an Australian mom was bragging that her girl, who was pretending to become a boy, that at age 15, she was menopausal. And that carries risks way beyond just osteoporosis. Bragging that, but this is the price we pay. If at 14 or 12 or 15, this is the decision you want to make, leave moms out of it and leave the doctors out of it. Give the little girl whatever she wants and let the government pay for it.
Well, yes, and according to Priest, heteronormativity has long fueled LGBT medical mistreatment. To avoid going back down that path, medicine must leave room for diverse and atypical health prioritizations.
In other words, because of a made-up identity crisis, and the fact that down through history, people didn't take seriously gay and transgender people, we have to throw out science and parental control to level the playing field.
Well, in that case, vaccines are...
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, let's throw those out if we're going to go down that road.
Then if you're a little kid who doesn't want who doesn't want the jab because of what he's... I mean, look, all you get from transgender drugs is menopause and osteoporosis.
Oh, right.
There are serious people out there talking about what could happen to you if you are forced to take the jab. Maybe we should, under no circumstances, empower parents to get their kids vaccines for the COVID. Wouldn't that be a similar thing? We should take away the right of both doctors and parents to force COVID vaccine on young children who don't want the risks of that, especially being young, and especially as there are no tests for children over 10 years. We have no idea what's going to happen. That seems to me to be perfect. If you're going to go with that, then you got to go with this. How much do you want to bet that little Miss Priest would absolutely recommend that every child be vaccinated, whether the parents or the doctors want them to or not? How much would you bet?
I wouldn't bet anything because I would lose.
Chrissy.
Talking about the vaccine, we have an incoming freshman to Brigham Young University, Hawaii, who had a decision to make. There's a lot of decisions when you go off to college. Olivia Sandor was denied a medical exemption to getting the COVID vaccine because she decided to not get it because it would be potentially dangerous to her life. And not just down the line when we know about longitudinal studies happening, but right here, right now.
So can I just say this? So in the previous story, you, at age 15, fully realize that taking these trans-promoting drugs are going to cause your body damage, but that you have every right to make that decision without the consent of your mother and the doctor. Here, you have a young woman who has a condition herself, Guillain-Barré syndrome, for which she is concerned about the consequences of taking the vaccine, but she has no power. She has no power. The doctors won't let her off. The school won't let her off. She has to take the vaccine. And she's actually an adult, not an underage child of 15. This is the crazy world you get when you allow transgender ideology to trump everything else.
and she just wants to go to college.
That's it.
But back in 2019 is when she developed the syndrome, and it was a side effect because she got a vaccine, and they don't know which vaccine.
So she got a vaccine that no doubt has been used for a long time and tested for a long time. It wasn't a COVID vaccine. She took some other vaccine. Right,
which, and they're not sure which one.
But certainly one that's been on the market a lot longer than the COVID vaccines. And she got this disorder. And so now she's been ordered to take yet another vaccine with way, way less study and actual research behind it.
And she denied it, so she can't go to school. Yeah. Now, she wrote on Instagram, she explained that what it is, the syndrome is an autoimmune disease caused by vaccines, which resulted in me being hospitalized and being paralyzed from the waist down. And the FDA explained that the GBS is a neurological disorder in which the body's immune system damages nerve cells, causing muscle weakness, or in the most severe cases, paralysis. So she had the most severe case of paralysis from the waist down. And yet, BYU said, nope, either you get jabbed or you can't come here.
And what also gets me, this is a putatively Christian school, taking the very unchristian point of view on this, behaving like godless fascists.
Yes. So what's interesting on top of that is the vaccine is not being mandated for staff at BYU Hawaii, but students need it. And so Sandor and her family spoke to the president of BYU Hawaii, and Sandor told him her story as to what happened, how she dreamed of attending BYU and how hard she worked to get there and all this. And she said, fortunately enough, we were able to get a response back from him. He told us that he would re-review my case with the medical panel and get back to me as fast as they could. A few days later, Denied. So she says, again, I was devastated, but at the same time, I felt peace. I may have worked so hard to get there, but now I know that wasn't the Lord's plan for me. I'm proud to say I did everything I could to fight it. And the university, as kind of like a backhanded compliment, slap in the face, I'm not sure what it would be. The university said that, you could go to a different BYU campus. You don't have to come to Hawaii where it's, Hawaii. You could instead go to Provo or Idaho.
Yeah, that's it. So we've mistreated you and completely, as Christians, turned you into an unindividualistic case study rather than a human being. But just because we did it here doesn't mean we'll do it everywhere. Go somewhere else to Utah. How about you just go somewhere else, period?
We like to talk about winners here on the Dr. Duke Show, and we're talking about a winner who's not really that much of a winner, more of a loser. But it's the Washington, D.C. History Teacher of the Year Award.
Oh, boy. Dun, 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 dun.
And the winner is one of the wokest, because they're always going to be the wokest if you're a history teacher in Washington, D.C. Well, this particular lady is very fond of China.
Kenesha Mills.
Kenesha Mills. We've talked about Kenesha Mills before. But here's Kenesha Mills. She teaches at Hardy Middle School. D.C. Public Schools, as you can see, posted this announcement saying Ms. Mills has done excellent work supporting her students and the teachers of the district more broadly, and we're thrilled to see her recognized for her efforts.
Of course.
Where have we heard about her before?
Where have we heard that name before?
Yes. The Zinn Education Project.
Howard Zinn's
Education.
Communist Education Program. She's a big fan and partner with,
Just
right?
a little bit of a fan, just kind of like fangirls them. So she penned a tribunal which asked students who they would blame for the coronavirus pandemic.
If there were a trial.
If there were, who would you blame? Because that's something all middle school students should be spending time learning about doing.
Included racism, capitalism, the U.S. government, among others. But not communism. Like China?
Yes, no. Very specifically Donald Trump and Mike Pence. And we talked about this when this story first came out about this tribunal that she had. We had a few words back then to say, so go back and watch that episode. But now, because she did this tribunal and she's fighting the power, she's winning History
Awards.
Teacher of the Year. And I'm sure any minute now she'll be given tenure at, well, I guess University of North Carolina now needs a new
now that
journalism
Hannah Jones is
professor.
spurned them.
Might as well just jump ship and go do that. But anyway, in this lesson plan that this tribunal was talking about, It presented an argument that applauded China for its handling
This is the key.
of the coronavirus.
China comes across smelling like a rose. The Chinese did it right.
did a great job.
Despite those wet markets, despite that big laboratory messing around with COVID, the biology of COVID viruses, nothing to see here. The fact that China was lying to us about their mortality numbers and not turning over to the WHO, which is itself a communist organization, any of the right documents. The Chinese did it right. But America's to blame. And, of course, she asked the question of her kids, if indeed America and capitalism is to blame for COVID-19, what should the punishment be?
And of course, this tribunal, this whole exercise activity was inspired by Black Panthers.
Of
Like,
course
they're
it was.
overt about this. Like, they're not trying to hide the ball. They're just like, yep, it's exactly what it is. She said, Kenesha Mills, that I wanted to point out that the capitalist system was behind the pain, trauma, isolation, and destitution my students were facing.
Yeah, what piece of evidence do you have for that?
What were they facing?
What
exactly.
one piece of evidence do you have that any of that's true?
And don't worry, here's some more drama.
Okay.
Capitalism, racism, and the U.S. government left us to die. That she should be the drama teacher of the year.
How
I
many
tell ya.
trillions of dollars did the Trump administration send out to people? How many trillions of dollars has now the what do you mean you were left to die? What does that mean? You mean like Andrew Cuomo sending you to old people's houses to die, old age homes to die? Is that kind of being left alone you're talking about? I mean, so what do you got here is, this is a perfect example of critical race theory. It is not about history. It is not about facts. It is about how successfully do you spread a completely lying and dishonest perspective of the world. How efficiently, how pseudo-intellectually can you get more and more your kids, your students, who are your hostages, to buy into a completely fantastical, imaginary reality made up by Marxists and Leninists?
Well, and she knows she did her job in teaching this critical race theory because of what the kids responded, like the tribunal.
And
what's
what
the
did they
result?
do?
They said, according to Mills at least, we don't actually know what happened. Sure, I'd like to hope there was that one child at least who just stayed quiet the whole time.
This is what we call kangaroo courts, right?
Exactly.
So what did this kangaroo court decide?
But the kids supposedly, according to Mills, the students concluded that they wanted to put Donald Trump, Mike Pence, and all members of the federal government in jail for their handling of the pandemic.
That's what
I guess
they decided.
I'm a little happy when they said all members of the federal government. I just don't know if they understood what the federal government actually includes because they don't teach them real history, so they wouldn't actually understand what the government looks like.
As a tribunal, I'm sure representatives of the Trump administration had a say too, right? That these kids actually heard the other side of it. If it's a tribunal, unless it's one of those Soviet courts, right? Then nobody has to. The other side doesn't get represented. And this, my friends, is an award-winning teacher in Washington, D.C.
And she also said, and this is why probably she was given the award, because she felt assured by her students' desire to, quote, fight against a racist capitalist system that harms us all.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what comes, what the prize is with this history teacher of the year. Does it come with any money?
I bet it does.
Does it come with a raise? Does it come with any sort of, just the simple recognition? Why did she not turn around and immediately say, this is for everyone? I did not earn this myself.
Why did Patrice Cullors buy 4 houses and leaving the
$1 million houses
of the parents of dead black people with nothing? Why do you think they do that? But my friends, if you're a mom and dad, this is what CRT does. This is a perfect example. Lie about history, proselytize liberalism, socialism, and communism, apologize for Marxists while blaming everything on America, and forcing little kids to hear one-sided narratives and then pretending they've made up their own mind about being progressive. You're going to send your kids to these schools? Okay, knock yourself out. This is our fourth day on Vincent van Gogh and Vincent van Gogh Week. We said many times this week that when you look at the stories we've done today, when you look at the stories we've done all week long, the absolute insanity of this country, whether it's completely deluded transgender theory or it's this kind of fascist Marxist, let's prosecute capitalism for the responsibility of COVID while praising the Chinese response. From one situation to another week, we've seen the insanity of radical globalist leftism, and we've also talked about how, besides the mental illness that is a hallmark of our age, the fact that there still can be that which is beautiful, and we think about the tortured and the irrational and the insane, and that the ability to commute it or transform it into beauty, we must think of, among other people, Vincent van Gogh. And so this is Van Gogh's Starry Night. It's his most famous painting. It is the most singular painting he wrote. It's the one that everybody immediately thinks of almost first. It has been endlessly foregrounded in Western culture since he painted it, and with good reason. Of all the beautiful paintings he wrote, this one really is as good or better than any of them. The Starry Night was painted again in that last year of his death. Remember, he died in 1889. In early 1889, he signed himself into an insane asylum, basically, because he was very worried about his mental health. And all he did for that last year of his life is paint. The more he painted, he said, the less likely he was to lose his mind or to become suicidal, which he would take his own life by the end of this year. In the year 1889, some of the paintings that he painted were stunning. We're going to see tomorrow irises. We see here today Starry Night. We talk about paintings like his bedroom in Arles, right? Or some of the other works that he did in this one little year. He painted feverishly, produced canvas after canvas after canvas, because in his own words, that painting it was, among anything else, that made him human and kept him alive. So the Starry Night was painted in June 1889, depicting the view from the east-facing window of his asylum room at Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, just before sunrise, with the addition of an imaginary village. That's what he would have seen from his asylum room, but there was no village there. That village was an earlier sketch of a different town. He added it to the picture. The painting is held today in the Modern American Art Museum, MoMA, in New York City, and this is, again, widely regarded as Van Gogh's magnus opus. Van Gogh is, of course, how they would have pronounced his name in his native Netherlands, Van Gogh. Starry Night is one of the most recognized paintings in all of Western art. In the aftermath of the breakdown that resulted in the self-mutilation of his left ear, he got himself in an asylum, and this is the more he seemed to be going mad, the more beautiful he painted. Researchers have determined that in the picture, Venus is right there to the right of that big tree in front of you. It's one of the brightest of the stars. Researchers have determined that Venus was at exactly that place in the sky, was nearly as bright as possible on that night he painted this. So the brightest star in the painting, just to the viewer's right of the cypress tree, is actually Venus. The moon itself is stylized in the painting, just to the viewer's right. The moon is stylized in the painting, as astronomical records indicate that it was actually a waning gibbous moon, not that type of a moon, when Vincent painted this. So he was paying attention to certain elements of nature when he put the picture together. And so what's so beautiful about this painting, among other things, is those swirling, as I think the artist Dan McLean in his beautiful song Starry Night, honoring Vincent van Gogh, said those swirling clouds and violet haze. The heavens here look beautiful and comforting. At one point, Vincent actually remarked that we use dots on a map to measure the difference between place to place. We measure here to heaven by the distance between us on earth and those stars. Very beautiful.
Well, all right, those are the stories for today. If you have a question for us, please feel free to drop it into the mailbag by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org. And if you enjoy our content, please consider joining our Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows us to keep bringing you these stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And as I always say, we will ship you our signature tumbler as just a little thank you.
And that is going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.